Oh, well, hey guys, let's talk about the new Warbond real quick. I had, orders from up above to go over the Truth Enforcers, and right off the rip, if you're worried about anything in here landing like a wet noodle, don't worry, everything is viable in those upper tier difficulties. I think most things in this Warbond package will land in that, B tier to A tier, and I do actually think we have a best in class now for one of the weapons. But we'll talk about the weapons, how they perform, their stats. We'll go over all that when we go planet side, because pods are ready to go. So why don't you follow me onto the pods, and while we're sitting there before we drop, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And yeah, let's go to our pods. I can't go this way because, so I gotta go around. I gotta go a long way. Oh man, landed on the fucking jungle planet. This place sucks. Anyways, all right, let's talk about the Warbomb. First, let's get the aesthetics out of the way. I think obviously with my color scheme I got going on here, I'm obviously a fan of the aesthetics. Now, the armor perk that you get with this set is unflinching, which basically it just reduces your flinch when you get hit. So you can take it or leave it with that. The booster, on the other hand, it lets you run and it'll deplete your health if you're out of stamina. Now, the big ticket question with this thing is, will this thing kill you? I'll give you all a couple seconds to, place your bets and, all right, now, for those of you that said it would not kill you, you're correct. If you run out of stamina and your health depletes all the way, you'll just simply stop sprinting. You will not sprint till you die, so that's a relief, I suppose. So with the fluff material out of the way, let's talk about the weapons. Let's talk about the shotgun first, the Halt. Now I think this thing has the most things going on with it because it has stasis rounds and it has fletchet rounds. The fletchet rounds, they're medium penetration, and those stasis rounds are light penetration. Now this thing boasts a pretty good, decent amount of damage, but it does suffer in the stagger department. But then on the flip side, for the plus for it, it does have that ability to, have stasis rounds, which will stun a target for about like 5 seconds or so is what I timed it at. And, another question with this, do the stasis rounds actually do damage? Yes, they do. It's a very abysmal amount of damage, but they do get it done. Actually, I lied. They don't get it done. Don't use this thing for damage if you're using the stasis rounds. Now, some nuance about this weapon here is the fact that it has basically 2 clips with it. You have your fletchet rounds and then your stasis rounds. So you can actually switch interchangeably between these two and save the amount of ammo you have, say, in each clip side. So for example, if you fire like half your magazine for the fletchets off, you can switch over to your stasis side and have a full magazine basically to work with. So a really good nuance with this would be, you go into a patrol or something, you unload on all of them with your stasis rounds that locks them all down. You can easily just switch over to your fletchet rounds, no reloading, and just go to town with them there. So that's a really cool nuance with this weapon. So when it adds like a new functionality, I give a lot of brownie points to that. I think this thing sits, it doesn't have a huge amount of stagger force. It does do a lot of damage, and again, it has that stasis functionality. I think this is a really solid pick, probably sitting somewhere in like a low A tier, maybe high B, depending on how much you like shotguns. But now let's move over to the Reprimand. Now the Reprimand, I think it has like 125 damage. It's all right. It does a pretty good job. Now this is the only SMG that is two-handed. This thing does not have one-handed functionality, so you cannot run and gun. That's a first for the SMG so far. But what it does have is medium armor penetration. So that's the trade-off that they're working with here. If I had to really compare this thing, I would say it's kind of like the Adjudicator. It's a little unwieldy, but the Adjudicator, it has a much better, like a bigger kick. This thing has a very subtle kick, very, very easy to maneuver with, but you also get those medium penetration bullets, and it does a pretty good amount of damage too. It actually tears through targets. It's just, the thing that I think hurts this weapon a little bit is the mag size is only 25. Oh, and we all know how I feel about mag sizes with these conventional weapons just being way too low. So for me, again, this weapon I would actually put probably in the higher end of B. I think it feels really good to shoot, but I don't think it makes it into like an A tier, for either bots or bugs. I'm mostly referring to the bugs here because I'm gonna do a ranking video on the bot side probably next week, so I don't want to show all my cards on that. Now moving on to the last weapon here, we have the Loyalist. Finally, we have a freaking blaster type sidearm. This thing is amazing. It's basically like a mini purifier. I just did a video on the purifier and I love the purifier. This thing has basically the same exact functionality. You have those big charge ups and it does a nice radius. You can take out a lot of chaff. You can also do the semi-automatic fire with this, but I wouldn't recommend that because there's only seven rounds in the cartridge for this thing. So definitely use this as a charge up weapon. It does medium armor penetration. It does that 125 damage, which is enough to basically 2-tap something like a bile spewer. And of course, being like a purifier, it does have that explosive functionality. I actually think this thing is top of the class for sidearms. It feels really good to use. I mean, we have a lot of really good sidearms, so I would. I could probably do a tier list on the sidearms now. I think we do have enough of them, and I think enough of them distinguish themselves, you know, as being very different play styles. But this Loyalist here, oh, it's really good, guys. It's really, really good, especially if you want that blaster type of like fire. So just to recap, these weapons, they're all good. They're all viable. They're all going to perform for you in those upper tier difficulties. Tier list wise, ranking wise, they probably sit somewhere in like high, mid B to maybe a little bit of a, you know, on the low side of A. The Loyalist, on the other hand, I think that thing is a contender for an S tier. The armor aesthetic, obviously, that's very subjective. I like it a lot. I think it's really cool. The booster, it's kind of handy. I could see picking that one. Maybe not like all the time as like a must pick, but I think it's at least unique enough and it functions well. It's not like something like the Helldive pod, the Hellfire pod. That thing sucks. And then yeah, that's really it for the Warbond here. I think Arrowhead has finally broken their streak of giving us a bad Warbond. Now, if they buff this, you know, Warbond in general up in the future, that'd be great. But as it stands right now, it's still a very solid Warbond. So that's it for the review. That's everything we got here. My Pelican just arrived. You guys are gonna have to catch the next one. So I'll see you then. Oh, you thought I was gonna leave my mic with you? I will. You guys can hang on to it for me.